Why, hello, greetings and salutations, my friends. This is Dave Plus, and I teach biology. I'm your favorite biology teacher. And we're here to learn lesson 2 of genetics, which is really lesson 1 if you don't count the intro. But I do count the intro, so this is lesson 2. And here we're going to get into early genetic theories. And this is a fun day where we're going to learn stuff now that we know now isn't right. So we get to feel super superior as we view all of these early genetic theories. So let's just get right into it. So with these early genetic theories, I'm always using a mind map to teach you because frankly, I think mind maps are a really effective mnemonic device, a way of remembering things. And this particular mind map is going to be a little bit mappier, we shall say, than the last one. Just because I am going to be breaking down categories into smaller categories, as should always happen with a mind map. So we have early genetic theories. The early genetic theory was something known as Pangenesis. It was developed by Aristotle. And Aristotle, great philosopher, really an originator of science, and he was a person who observed the natural world and tried to understand what was going on, as opposed to Plato, who felt that it was all this sort of ideal thing that was all set in some sort of stone form, if you will. Now, Aristotle was a scientist. He observed and tried to see things as they were. Now, he didn't quite get it right here, but he still tried. So the idea of pangenesis is that egg and sperm had something called pangenes. And the pangenes were kind of like a blueprint how to make every body part. I mean, okay, so why are my eyes colored the way they're colored? Well, those were what the pangenes were. What about, why am I so tall? Well, I got good tall pangenes. Why does my skin look the way it looks? Well, those were the pangenes I got. So the idea is that every single trait had a gene associated with it, a pangene associated with it, a blueprint associated with it. And then when they got into the body, and that's the part of the mind map that's being covered by my hand. I apologize. I'm a lefty. I'm left-handed, so I cover everything I write when I'm writing it. And that's why it's hard. But pangenes, they are the things that develop into different body parts. So you literally have a little baby arm and a little baby leg, and all those things would grow. And frankly, this theory, it did explain how kids kind of looked like their parents and was accepted for really hundreds and hundreds of years. One might even say probably thousands of years, because people didn't really start to challenge Aristotle's pangene theory. Certainly in the Western literature, they didn't challenge it really until this guy, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, came along.
The blue one.
And it wasn't so much the van Leeuwenhoek that made it all happen, it was what he was using, and it was something really exciting called a microscope. And van Leeuwenhoek, he discovered living sperm. Now, we don't really want to dig down too much into exactly where he discovered it, but use your imagination as to where he might have gotten the sample. But imagine, he had a microscope. And it's not actually that unbelievable to think that a guy, this would be one of the first things he'd want to look at. Just like when you get a dictionary, one of the first things you do is look up swear words. So, he discovered living sperm. And he thought he saw something in there. It's kind of like those people who think they see a picture of Jesus in a toast. He thought he saw a little man, or perhaps a little lady, inside of the sperm. And he came to believe that that was the father's contribution. So essentially the father contributed a little mini man And that was the contribution from the father. And one would suppose he didn't see an egg, right? So he didn't know about the egg yet, but maybe he left open the idea that there was a little lady waiting to meet the little man to create a new little baby. But that was Van Leeuwenhoek's theory. And sometimes this little man is known as a homunculus. So if you've ever heard of a homunculus, it can mean a number of different things. This theory sort of held sway for a while until a new theory came into vogue. And if the microscope inspired the last theory, it was breeders of flowers and doggies who inspired this one, and this was known as blending theory. It was popular in the 1800s. And basically, it did a pretty good job of explaining what we saw, but not why we saw it, and not how it happened in all ways. And essentially, what is it? Offspring show characteristics of both parents. Pretty straightforward. So, if you have a kid and, mom has dark hair and dad has light hair, odds are the kid's hair is going to be somewhere in between. If you have a flower that's white and you have a flower that's red and you breed them, very often, what do you get? You get something that is pink. And then when those pink flowers have kids, they're all pink. But here's the problem. They're not always pink. So sometimes pink flowers can produce white flowers or red flowers. You'd imagine, based on blending theory, that brown eyes could only give you more brown eyes. But actually, two people with brown eyes could have a kid with blue eyes. Okay? So that's just some of the evidence I've given you that disproves that most recent theory. And how do you disprove something in science? Well, you just say that you have evidence that shows that the thing you said was going to always happen doesn't always happen. And now we need a new theory to explain things like dominance, recessiveness. How do you get a trait that doesn't show in one generation but pops up in the next generation? It's like we need a new theory. But before we think of a new theory, let's just take a minute to go over our old ones. So you had Pangenesis, okay, little baby with all the, in the sperm, little parts, all the little parts already figured out. Then you had Van Leeuwenhoek and the microscope people, and the first microscope people in the 1600s, who started to observe that there's something inside a sperm that might explain where our traits come from. Then we kind of moved into a theory that, well, yeah, we have our traits and they're all established, but the way inheritance works is those traits somehow blend together in the new baby. So you have this constant blending and joining and creating of these new traits. And none of these theories are good enough. What theory has proven to be good enough so far? Well, almost good enough. I'll tell you which theory. It's Mendel's. And if you want to learn more about that, you got to go to lesson 3. All right? All right, see you there.